Pack your bags, we're headed on a big old ride with dreams of sunlit shores and the open skies.
Hello and welcome. Today I'm taking you with us on the first part of an unforgettable journey through Japan. From our arrival in Yokohama to stunning views of Mount Fuji and the excitement of boarding the Diamond Princess, this was the beginning of an adventure we'd been looking forward to for a very long time. So grab a coffee, settle back and join us as our Japan adventure begins. Like most big adventures, this one started long before we reached our destination. After months of planning, checking cruise itineraries, booking hotels, and making sure everything was in place, departure day had finally arrived. We left home full of anticipation. Japan had been on our travel wish list for years. The plans seemed straightforward enough. Fly to Frankfurt, connect to our flight to Tokyo, spend a few days exploring Yokohama, and then board the Diamond Princess for a cruise around Japan. Simple. Or so we thought. Heavy snowfall in Frankfurt had caused widespread disruption at the airport, with flights being delayed and schedules thrown into chaos. As departure boards updated and passengers gathered around information desks, it became clear that our flight from Larnaca to Frankfurt would not be leaving on time. What had started as a straightforward travel day was quickly becoming more complicated. The delay meant that our carefully planned connection to Tokyo was now in jeopardy. After a delay of 2.5 hours, our Lufthansa A320 finally pushed back from the gate at around 6:30 p.m. We were relieved to be on our way at last and looking forward to putting the day's travel frustrations behind us. As we settled into our seats, Mandy happened to mention to one of the cabin crew that it was my birthday. What followed was completely unexpected. A few moments later, the crew gathered nearby and treated me to an impromptu rendition of Happy Birthday, much to the amusement of our fellow passengers, before presenting me with a box of chocolates. It was a lovely gesture and a wonderful start to the trip. There was also a moment of unplanned comedy shortly after takeoff. My travel pillow, which I thought was safely tucked under the seat in front, apparently had other ideas. As the aircraft climbed away from Cyprus, it escaped from its resting place and rolled dramatically down the aisle. Thankfully, a quick-thinking passenger stopped its bid for freedom and returned it to its slightly embarrassed owner. The surprises didn't end there. About halfway through the flight, 3 members of the cabin crew appeared at my seat carrying another box of chocolates, a small birthday cake, an apricot cheesecake no less, and a handwritten birthday card signed by the crew. They once again sang Happy Birthday while nearby passengers joined in with smiles and applause. I have to admit I was genuinely touched by their kindness. It was one of those unexpected moments that turns an ordinary flight into a memory that stays with you long after the journey is over. The following morning, we pulled back the curtains in our Frankfurt hotel room to discover a picture postcard winter scene. Overnight, fresh snow had blanketed the city, transforming rooftops, trees and streets into a sea of sparkling white. With the sun shining brightly from a cloudless sky, it was hard to stay disappointed about our unexpected stopover. After enjoying a hearty buffet breakfast, I decided to venture outside for a short walk around the neighbourhood. The temperature was only just above freezing, but the crisp winter air felt refreshing after the previous day's travel frustrations. As I wandered through the snow-covered streets, it was easy to appreciate the beauty of a city dressed in its winter finery. Before long, it was time to continue our journey. A short taxi ride of around 10 minutes brought us back to Frankfurt Airport, where we checked in for what would be the longest flight of the trip. At 2 p.m, we finally departed aboard a Lufthansa Boeing 747-8 bound for Tokyo. As the giant aircraft climbed away from Germany and headed east, there was a growing sense that our Japanese adventure was truly underway at last. 12 hours later, as we began our descent into Japan, we were treated to a spectacular welcome. Through the aircraft window, standing proudly above the surrounding landscape, was the unmistakable silhouette of Mount Fuji. Its snow-capped peak gleamed in the afternoon sunshine, offering us our first glimpse of one of Japan's most iconic landmarks. It was a magical sight and the perfect way to announce that, after all the delays and unexpected detours, we had finally arrived in Japan. After clearing the airport formalities, we made our way to the airport limousine bus for the journey into Yokohama. At just 1,000 yen per person, it proved to be both comfortable and excellent value. With our luggage safely stowed away, all we had to do was sit back and enjoy our first real look at Japan. The journey into the city was slower than expected due to heavy traffic, but that hardly mattered. As we made our way towards Yokohama, we crossed several enormous bridges spanning the vast port complex. Looking out of the window, we were struck by the sheer scale of the harbour. Container ships, towering cranes, and endless rows of dock facilities stretched as far as the eye could see. It was an impressive introduction to one of the world's busiest maritime regions. By the time we arrived at our hotel, the Citadines harbourfront Yokohama, the long journey and time difference, were beginning to catch up with us. We were both feeling tired after nearly 2 days of travelling, but our spirits were immediately lifted during check-in. To our delight, we were informed that we had been upgraded to a superior room on the 13th floor. It was a completely unexpected bonus and a wonderful start to our stay. There's something about receiving an upgrade that instantly makes you feel welcome, especially after a long and tiring journey. After dropping our bags and taking a few moments to admire the view from our room, curiosity soon got the better of us. Despite our fatigue, we were eager to explore our new surroundings and headed out for our first walk through Yokohama. Our destination was Yamashita Park, located along the city's attractive waterfront. Almost immediately, one thing stood out above everything else: the remarkable cleanliness of the city. The streets were spotless. There was no litter, no graffiti, and no signs of neglect anywhere. Everything appeared meticulously maintained. It quickly became clear that the Japanese take enormous pride in their surroundings. Whether it was the parks, the pavements, or the public spaces, there was a sense of order, respect, and care that was impossible not to notice. It was our first real impression of Japan, and it left a lasting one. Inside the park, the atmosphere was relaxed and lively. We paused to watch a local comedian acrobat who had drawn a small crowd. He was energetic, funny, and brilliantly skilled. The kind of unexpected street performance that makes you smile long after it's over. Travel isn't just about landmarks. It's about these small, spontaneous moments. The mild evening air made it perfect for a slow wander along the waterfront. Across the bay, the skyline shimmered as the light began to soften, and in the distance stood the impressive Yokohama Bay Bridge stretching confidently across the water. It's one of those views that invites you to stop, lean on the railing, and simply take it all in. As day faded into night, we found ourselves standing before the beautifully illuminated NYK Hikawa Maru. This 1930s ocean liner, a survivor of wartime and now a maritime museum, looked magnificent lit up against the darkening sky. The ship's lights rippled across the water, creating a scene that felt almost cinematic. We continued through Yamashita Park, now transformed. Trees sparkled with lights, statues and fountains were softly illuminated, and at the heart of it all was a winter wonderland complete with an ice skating rink. It felt festive, magical, and quietly joyful all at once. To round off the evening, we stopped at Jonathan's for dinner. Drinks, good food, and then the real surprise. Our meal was delivered by a robot waiter. Watching it glide efficiently between tables was oddly fascinating. Efficient, polite, futuristic. and just a little bit brilliant. On our first morning in Japan, feeling a little braver, we decided to tackle the metro into central Yokohama. With most of the signs in Japanese, it felt slightly daunting at first. We stood on the platform double-checking maps and pretending we knew exactly what we were doing. That's when a local gentleman standing with his young son noticed our mild confusion. He asked where we were heading and kindly explained which train to catch and which station to watch for. Such a simple gesture, but one that perfectly sums up the warmth and helpfulness we've experienced in Japan. We stepped off at Yokohama station and spent some time picking up a few essentials and soaking up the everyday rhythm of the city. It's always fascinating to step slightly away from the tourist spots and see normal life unfolding. Commuters moving with purpose, immaculate streets, orderly queues. Navigating the metro back to the harbour felt like a small victory. We were practically locals by then. Down at the waterfront, a strawberry festival was in full swing, or at least the queue for it was. The crowds were enormous, stretching far beyond what we were prepared to stand in. So we made the executive decision to admire it from afar and move on. Instead, we stopped to admire the magnificent Nippon Maru, the beautifully preserved former training vessel, now permanently docked in Yokohama's harbour. With her towering masts and crisp white hull, she looks every bit the proud sailing ship of a bygone era. Next came one of the more unusual attractions on our list, the Cup Noodles Museum, Yokohama. A museum dedicated to instant noodles might not sound thrilling, but it was surprisingly engaging. From the history of Japan's noodle obsession to the global success of cup noodles, it's clever, interactive, and far more interesting than you'd expect. Directly across the road stands the enormous Cosmo Clock 21, the giant Ferris wheel with a clock built into its centre. It dominates the skyline and is surrounded by a compact amusement park, complete with some impressively twisty roller coasters. It's hard not to feel a little childlike standing beneath it. As the afternoon began to fade into evening, we made our way towards one of Yokohama's most famous districts, Chinatown. The moment we arrived, the atmosphere changed completely. The magnificent entrance gate was our first clue that we were stepping into somewhere special. Rich colours, intricate carvings, and traditional Chinese architecture created a striking welcome. Beyond the gate, the streets were alive with activity. Bright lanterns hung overhead, food stalls filled the air with tempting aromas, and crowds flowed through the narrow streets in every direction. It was vibrant, noisy, and full of energy. The main street was particularly busy, so rather than battle through the crowds, we decided to explore some of the quieter side streets instead. As is often the case when travelling, that decision led us to one of the most memorable moments of the day. Tucked away down a small side road, we discovered a tiny local bar with just 3 tables. It was the sort of place you could easily walk past without noticing. Curious, we stepped inside and found a seat at the counter. Communication was something of an adventure in itself. Between a few smiles, some enthusiastic pointing and a fair amount of sign language, we eventually managed to order a couple of beers. The elderly lady behind the counter, who looked to be well into her 80s, served us with a quiet dignity and efficiency that immediately made us feel welcome. Without any fuss, she later appeared with 2 small plates of food for us to enjoy. There was no grand gesture, no expectation of anything in return, just simple kindness and genuine hospitality. It was one of those moments that felt wonderfully authentic and reminded us why we love travelling. Eventually, we left our tiny bar and continued exploring the district as the evening lights illuminated the streets around us. The lanterns glowed against the darkening sky, creating a warm and inviting atmosphere throughout Chinatown. Later, we found ourselves on Hong Kong Street, where we chose a restaurant for dinner. The welcome was friendly, the food was excellent, and, feeling suitably adventurous, we decided it was time to sample one of Japan's most famous drinks, sake. Smooth, slightly warming, and far easier to drink than we had expected, it proved to be the perfect accompaniment to our meal. Sitting there reflecting on the day, it felt like the ideal way to end another enjoyable evening in Japan. Looking back, it wasn't a day filled with major tourist attractions or famous landmarks. Instead, it was a collection of small experiences, successfully navigating the metro, chatting with a helpful local, discovering a hidden three-table bar, and enjoying our first taste of sake. Those are often the moments that stay with you longest. Individually, they may seem insignificant, but together they weave themselves into the fabric of a journey and become some of the memories you treasure most. Thank you for listening to part 1 of our Japanese adventure. We hope to see you in part 2. Bye for now.
Pack your bags, we're headed on a big old ride with dreams of sunlit shores and the open skies.